I believe we can already start, because it's already 20 minutes, not 15, and everyone who is eating is coming in and can continue eating just in the front row. So, my name is Andrei, and I would like to start with a question. Among you, who voted for this speech just by reading the title and not reading the description? So half, marketing in action, okay. I will then a bit touch that description that I added to it. So I won't be talking about the magic as itself, yeah. I won't be talking about science, but probably I'll touch one and the other topic in some daily applications. Then it would be about some frameworks, about the systems that should work for all the companies, like the scorecard methods or something like that. That will be my personal little stories that worked for me or failed for me that I'd like to share. A couple of words about me. I worked in two product companies, one which made quite complex medical products, and the other one is about massive online games with a lot of infrastructure around it, this wargaming. And currently I'm working in Cogniance as in the strange role of product manager in outsource, which was quite a surprise for me when I joined that it just exists. I know that in soft serves it's kind of the same hot topic right now, so we can exchange some thoughts about that. And from my previous experience, I can say that without being too humble, that I'm not afraid to be challenged by product, yeah. But I'm a bit nervous staying here in this stage with one of my first public talks and first talk in English in front of you smart guys. So I would appreciate your support. Thank you. So let's start. For me, the telekinesis word is breaking down somehow into some sets. So I'm kind of strange person. I think in some analogies, in some, I like to find patterns and to give them names. That's why I broken down what we have for today into three sets of superpowers. The one to handle stakeholders, the one to engage your team, and some universal ones. Why it is important for me? Because as a product manager, I'm not the CEO of my product, as many say, as good articles write about it. I do not have the ultimate power to make some decisions. Yeah, they are made somewhere higher. They are sometimes pushed. I also do not manage my development team directly. I can only engage them. I can only ignite them. I can only, well, basically internally sell to them. And I can't say like, do this, do that. Well, of course I can, but that won't work. And for me, all about telekinesis are about these superpowers, bidirectional ones. And I'll share some cases from my professional life, a bit anonymized, but still they will be just out of real context. And after each of the sections, I encourage you to ask some questions, to add more stories from your experience probably, so that we can talk that through. And of course we can continue afterwards during further breaks. And the first section for me starts from the very simple question to you guys. As product managers, what were your pains and your biggest problems with your stakeholders? Anyone? Misalignment in what? Okay. So they push things. What else?
Guess what they mean.
They don't, explicitly say what they want to achieve. Okay. Anything else?
Some deadlines.
Deadlines. That's a problem, but for me, it's more like a project management problem. Yeah.
Hidden decision maker.
Cool thing, also. Okay, let's start with those. So I believe at least a couple of them will be covered by my stories as well, and the others are also interesting topic to discuss later. So, first superpower for me, which I called smart resistance. They won't ask you about it. They won't always be glad, but that's where product management starts for me, especially in outsource, because in product companies that's a bit easier. However, in big product companies, that's also can be complete trash. When people are just pushing something from top to bottom, trying to get it delivered, to get it in the market, and you might see that, or you might guess that it's not completely right, yeah. But you sometimes don't have guts maybe to resist or tools to resist. And let me illustrate how that works usually and worked really for me by this example. So this first section are about bottom-up requirements. You probably know, if there are like all product managers or analysts in this room, that kind of smell which you feel when you see that bad requirements, and that headache that it gives you when you read that one sentence in so-called product requirement document where they cover security along with color of the button and along with, I don't know, some marketing bullshit. And you need to work somehow with it. And I was engaged in one of such products, unfortunately not on the first stage, but when that kind of product requirements were already half implemented. And it was a nightmare because every talk with the customer was focused not on delivering good thing, not on deciding on further pivoting, but it was the bargaining about what will we exactly do and whether it will fit that product requirements or not. And he, from his side, tried to push that, because for him that was a fixed price. And we, from our side, tried to explain that it doesn't need to be done because this and that, and it's not usable anyway. And for every product that I'm involved in, I try not to allow that. So, of course, it's not always possible, like in this example. But when you speak with your stakeholder, whoever it is, when you draw some user journeys, when you at least align his expectations and rephrase it in your way, it allows to get that single map at least. Yeah? And it allows you to explain some things, and you take a little bit of lead there. Yeah, so that's where it starts for me. The other example, by the way, how the thing works, yeah, reports for the parity, was in another product where I was involved into making it alive and substituting some older thing. The older thing that worked already for the people, but it was trashy, it didn't have a lot of new things, and the stakeholder came to me and said, hey, you know, we want to reach that 100% parity. We want to have this reporting functionality available there by that time. And it was already in the development pipeline, so I even didn't have a chance to say him no there. Yeah. However, when we started migrating users from the old product to the new one, of course we found that crazy little thing called we don't know what it is. Yeah? So some people knew about this feature, but they didn't know the value. Some people even didn't see it. And that stakeholder was 100% sure that it should be there, just because it was in the old product. So my advice here, just simple, don't believe anything. Just don't let stakeholders' hypothesis to slip into development as is. This one is in fact an attitude, and it is quite a sickness for fast-growing product companies that I saw. We have resources, we have money flowing in, we have strong teams, or at least strong people inside teams, and people on the top want to do just the best and a lot of the best things. And these both examples were about different, by the way, products, but with the same end result probably. The first one was when instead of allowing new product not to cover everything inside as a software solution and using the services team which can do something manually for the users and serve them in that way, he insisted to do everything, like to code everything, to have everything available inside. And that was a long project for like more than 2 years probably. And we try to show them, him with analysts that it in fact can work easily just by extending service team. He said, no, it won't at first. Some 9 months later, as far as I remember, he returned to that idea, but it was late. So that was my fail as well. Probably I didn't find very nice words or numbers to persuade him, but we lost already the first momentum to start doing that, and that was, well, not a tragedy at all, but a big loss of time and resources. And this one is about spaghetti products. I mean, products with spaghetti code that are successful, that are maintained for quite some time already, where developers are starting to get really not just dulled, but suppressed by the complexity of the code and so on. And then sometime the CEO or someone decides, okay, it's time to stop this product and just rewrite it in another way. And that's what happens sometimes even without investigations. Sometimes some preliminary investigations are made. But here is the trick that was here. The old product was not going anywhere. It was still there for the users, and the users asked for its further development, so it just could not be frozen. So we invested team's time to the new product, and with the time flow, the old one started to require more and more time of that team that we thought would only be spent for the new product. And along the way, that new product lost several unique selling points because the features were needed earlier, yeah. And in like a year, the old guys, the old product, came so close to the new one in terms of feature set that the only difference was this technical one, and that was not what was intended. We lost a lot of people effort, a lot of time in discussions with different indirect stakeholders for balancing that new product, pushing to the market and presenting it to the people, showing the value while still keeping the old one alive. The next one, superpower for me, I called it Foresight. And sometimes for me, stakeholders are looking like this Fry from Futurama on this picture. And it's not because they're like stupid or anything. It's because they already have something in mind that should work for them, but they don't think about what exactly it is aimed at. And by effects here, I don't mean only the effects that we want to achieve. I also mean the effects that are inevitable. Something shifted on the market, something happened with our audience. Donald Trump is elected, whatever can influence our product. And some examples to speak about here. Retention is a good metric, usually, right? It's an effect that we want probably to achieve and to measure somehow. However, not for the internal product that I made, where there were a lot of teams worldwide that used quite technological approaches to doing some business. And we migrated them from one set of solutions, external ones, to some internal good solution. And stakeholder insisted that we need to measure retention. However, being a good metric for some Apple Store application, it just didn't work for us because we had different headcount changes in all of those teams. We had stable approach, yeah, and stable number of teams. So it didn't matter, in fact, how many people used the product after all. What mattered is how many work products they created using this new tool. And ideally, how many money they saved for the company or they earned for the company, not just how they use our product within 7 days after migration. So that dialogue ended with a pause. It wasn't solved completely, but at least he didn't add that metric and we did not measure it at all. Instead, we were measuring that work products. This example is about such thing as your product site, your product portal, maybe promo site, something like that. As for me, they are often underestimated. Everyone is concentrating on the main thing, be it some B2B solution like CRM, be it a big game, be it, I don't know, some app store, mobile application, whatever. And often those supportive products like forums, support sites, promo sites are just merely ignored and do not have any strategy at all, or they are just the money are just spent there according to some wow effects or whatever the leader says. And that's not correct as for me, because those supportive products might have many impacts on acquisition, on retention, and on monetization as well. In acquisition, that might be the first place where a user sees something, yeah, but that's okay, that's usually covered if you are developing some kind of advanced promo site. But for retention as well, there are plenty of opportunities to build communities, to build something on top of communities, to check their interest, to let the user explain the wider ecosystem of your product and even do some cross-selling and upselling. So I would measure it always and not forget that apart from the main star product, you have some ecosystem around it that can be measured and should be measured. The last one for the stakeholders is very simple, but sometimes very hard to achieve, especially when you're outsourcing. It's not about only being honest. It's about showing and proving the real size of the problem for your stakeholder, be it inside or outside. And two cases that I have for this are these ones. So that funny sounding thing happened when we had broken a customer's site by our product. So it was a third party that was included there, and it has broken some important stuff. We, of course, handled that as a support case, but we handled it for a week because of several calls, several developers' investigations, and somewhere in the middle of the week, that customer just said, enough, I don't want to use you. And the problem in the end was that it was on his side. But it doesn't matter anyway. I lost the customer. And we were not quick enough in answering him. We were not quick enough in managing his expectations. And that is the real problem, yeah? And after that, we had a talk with a stakeholder to invest more in support. Here, it was quite similar situation. Stakeholder pushed the development team to add more and more features and be faster with the product development, with the actual software. And we tried to do that, and we succeeded there, at least partially. And we were, hooray, we're doing that, until we started to speak with users. And what turned out is that most of them just don't use or don't understand how to use some features. And that was not because our product had bad usability or bad features. That was because they didn't know the tools of this part of the industry even. So they wouldn't be able to use even competitor solutions to good efficiency. And we then talked with the stakeholder, and fortunately he agreed that we should put much more investment into user education. And fortunately that was again about some internal product. It was not about big marketing budgets for massive end user products. So here one thing which I would like to add apart from transparency is this product manager is not only doing their correct features and the correct roadmap. Sometimes you just need to look into marketing, into operations, into support, and ask some nasty questions there or suggest something. So for me, those three superpowers for the stakeholders give very important things. They provide me trust and independence for my own work, where after initial resistance, being honest and showing what we can, what we should achieve, and not just speaking about solutions on all that sync up calls with the big guys out there. I'm also getting this credit, you know, to continue to go on, to experiment, and so on. Without this stuff, usually what happens is just proxying and restructuring the work from one shitty form to another, maybe better form, but still that might miss the target. Before we move forward, are there any stories, guys, that you had? So I believe I covered at least one or two phrases that were in the beginning about their incorrect requirements, not understanding what stakeholder wants here. So for me, it works right here. When I start talking not about their solutions that they have in mind, but about the really effect that we want to achieve or that we need to be prepared for, that works. Any other things that you guys would like to bring up? Any questions for this section?
Yeah, maybe I would add, for example, you mentioned the topic about starting new, building from scratch versus improving existing one. And that's really something. I had one case which was really close to you, for example, when I have to support one product from my side, which was the old customer. We were building something new, which I think is cool and etc. And at the end, we understood that this is quite the same in terms of the features.
Yeah.
So, and after that, I learned the lesson actually. So, if you want to build something new, you have to resolve some new market problem. For example, so that's the only case you have to build new the product. If you have some product that resolves the problem, improve that one. For example, if you already have, but if you're really targeting new customer base, new problem in the market, not the new customers, new problem in the market.
That's right.
Yeah, so that's when you have to build something new from scratch.
Great addition, by the way. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's move on, guys. I've got the same question for you about the team. Again, as a product manager, sorry, not talking about the time constraints, not talking about, oh, we can't do it at all. Like, what kind of problems you had with your teams? Anyone? Motivation, can you decipher that? Like, what lacked there?
They want to do something themselves.
Okay, so they wanted a playground.
They don't understand the business.
Okay.
Legacy code.
Yeah, but that's kind of, well, it can be part of your pain too.
Controversial interests.
What do you mean?
I mean that someone, different stakeholders have different interests, and they, making problems just because they...
But they're making problems for you, not for your team, right? That's your obligation to align that somehow.
The measurement of success. It's our biggest problem.
Of the product or of the team?
How to measure the team. We don't know how to measure, how to see who's better, who did a better job.
Okay, got it, but that's about people management, not about the product, yeah. Okay, so let's we've got 15 minutes. I'll be just getting on. Several phrases that you guys added are really something that I had in mind as well. For me, one of the biggest things is this: tell the story. And it's a hot topic. Probably all of you read those articles. It's a hot topic in marketing. It's a hot topic in sales from the beginning of the sales. It starts to be hot topic in many other areas. But product management, as for me, is impossible without that at all. Because when you don't see the map here, not talking about the roadmap, when you don't see that mountains and trees and everything that you're going to challenge and that you're going through with your team, that won't work. What I mean here, and what works for me, I usually start on with a new team with some hard questions. When QA is getting me through the smoke testing, for instance, I always try to stop somewhere and ask, okay, when we are changing something here, is it just a nice view, or is it really influences that third party and influences that other business component and so on? When our user works with our product, how does he earns money and satisfies his customers, if that's not just an end-user product? That kind of stuff. And you know, there is always some unanswered questions, like always. There might be great guys who prepare just very cool and detailed, for instance, test cases or requirements, or they know everything about layers of architecture and about particular tasks and history of why this was made like this and that like that. But there are always gaps regarding this business side, like some of you told in the question section. And by doing that, in fact, I provoke that interest usually. Not for all, of course, but usually at least that first feeling of being ashamed that you can't answer a new person on the team about something that product should do, some value that it brings, makes you try to dig there and to know that. And makes me as a product manager try to dig for that for the team and then broadcast it if needed. Then, sometime later, teams start to ask hard questions. I don't know about all of you guys, but for me it's sometimes really hard to answer that. Like now is November, well now I can answer of course what we will do after New Year, but that's not always the case. And I'm not talking only about when I'm joining a new team and new product and I don't know anything about this domain. That happens even when you are pivoting, when you are restructuring something and you don't have that answer. But these are not just idle questions to test if you are doing your job at all. As on Einar's slide there was the picture how your team sees you, like a big orangutan reading their newspaper or something. They're not just checking you. That is needed to really understand how they would prepare their internals of the product for that upcoming features. What they should look into from technological perspective, for instance. And just even some simple questions like whether their expertise will be enough for that, and so on and so on. So, as for me, this is a very important part of storytelling as well. But even the more important part is about devil in details. All you know that proverb that devil's hidden in the details. I like to make use of the devil in every case I can. In every talk, for instance, about some pure visual bug, which might seem a small thing that we could have postponed, but for some reason I push it to the development. I, as a product manager, feel the need to explain why is that, because that's part of onboarding for the new users, because that's part of some demo flow or whatever. Basically bringing the business context into every questionable thing for development team. And I saw that it works. It really works. Afterwards, QAs try to test the product from a bit different perspective, not just putting all the combinations on, but somehow better understanding like that this is completely unrealistic situation despite their catastrophic look that it has. And this small thing is in fact of a great value for the customer, and we need to make it high prior again. They won't even come for me. They know it themselves. That was about storytelling. Now this is my favorite. I tried to find some other name for that, but I can't. Poor me. What I mean here is one of the, as for me, one of the most important things that you start to apply when you are not just doing your part of the job, but you're responsible for some bigger chunk of work, and you have a lot of different people and a lot of different roles there doing the real job. And I'd like to illustrate it with some quotes. So, of course, you need to look in the marketing, in the support, as I had sometimes. And that is, by the way, part of Toyota culture, as far as I remember, when boss of any level should from time to time come to the real details and do the real work that some particular worker on the line does, to understand what is inefficient there, to understand how it works now, and to understand basically what he rules. And the quotes are the following. You don't want to write good requirements. A colleague of mine once heard from QA or developer, I don't remember, and he was threatened with that, because it basically meant, okay, so the team is against me, the team wants me to just chew everything and do that micromanagement for the product. Is it okay? Is it all right? For me, that sounded like an opportunity, in fact, because that gives you the possibility to understand their level of details where your teams work, to understand whether you need to spend your time or your team's time to describe really their product behavior, the effects, and so on, and to, in 1-2 sprints after you decided that, forget about that at all. So it will be just seamless. Well, of course, it will have some errors, and you will have that questions in retrospective, but in the end of the day, you will be just focusing on driving the product towards needed direction. The team will be happy with that good enough level of requirements, and with storytelling in play, you will have that single direction of efforts with somehow naturally split responsibilities without having that heavy processes in place. The second one is kind of the same, but the other way around. I treat it as a very good question for some groomings. That's ideal thing to illustrate, like, okay, we're talking here about this business situation, and let's suppose that I'm a 40-year-old bookkeeping woman that is doing this and that, and she expects to receive this. But when this comes up to detailing all kind of, well, basically test cases in requirements on the low level or in acceptance criteria of your stories, as for me, that starts to be not correct. There are QAs, there are developers who can walk that further, and by doing that can understand the product better. So you'd better try to somehow balance between those things. And that's what I try to do, again, not the first, but probably the second thing when I join new team. Do you want me to research a competitor? One of my developers asked me. And yes, I did. My first thought, why I wanted that, was for him to search for some technical solutions, maybe to copy something, maybe to see where we are in fact better, maybe to just deviate from that idea somehow about our technological stack, something like that. But then I understood that it's also a very good exercise for the guys to be in my shoes just from time to time and gives them to the feeling of that big story by themselves. And that really helps in all the conversations afterwards. Really cool stuff. Who hasn't heard this phrase from their developers? You're a happy person. The one in the... Probably you have really...
Can say no to a developer. They say, I don't care the technology, take a good technology, change the technology, and make it another way, as I say.
Yeah, but you heard this. Yeah, so still. Yeah.
Every time. More and more and more.
Right.
I don't hear this anymore.
Yeah, and yeah, my approach is quite the same. So just to give an example, we try to do one thing with a particular data that should have been available in our for our product according to some standard. It was in the standard, yeah, it was there, but it was a technical limitation in our product for some reason. And I really just sit with developer. We looked in the standard, there. We looked into browser's console, tried getting that data from just out of our product from different sites. Of course, he was typing something. I might have learned that, but I didn't know all that ways to do that. And he showed me, okay, that works here. Okay, I said, now let's look into our product. He just slided across several source files, and we found basically in some 10 minutes the place where this truncation of the data happened. So I don't know anything about that technological stack. Yeah, I just played that role of asking, okay, why, please, can you show me, and so on. And that can work once, but then developer will probably do that himself, like it was told. And that's the altitude zooming, which helps you to really grow that same skill in your team. And without it, I usually cannot proceed. So if that's only top down, that doesn't work for me. I feel always having no energy to just tell team what to do. That's why I always try to bring them also this wider perspective, and that's what helps me to move on there. And finally, just-in-timeness, as I call this superpower, is not about being on time, like German people on the meeting. I am guilty there. I am often not on time. But how many of you guys, at least once, were on the meeting with a team or with some other guys and were just typing something on their laptops? Just walking, continue to walk and not being part of the meeting. Yeah, and I am doing that from time to time myself, but I'm trying to get rid of that bad habit. If you don't bring value to the meeting, why come? Really, you can save time and save your environment to stay more focused on your tasks and not irritate your team, which sees that you are still not with them. Just don't be there. Just say that you are optional there. And that what happened for me when I asked myself, okay, if I miss a stand-up, what happens? Just nothing, usually nothing. It's okay. However, in other cases, I might be there just because I need to share something with the team. I may break their process of that good, nice stand-up. Okay, what you did yesterday, what you're going to do tomorrow. Okay, who's next? QA. Guys, we have great feedback from our customer and I want to share it with you. You need to be there. You need to make it personal and not just write a mail. And the same for their support. If you get a support case, you won't wait for that. Yeah, you will just be there, bringing in the problem, breaking everything, and making the team replan their day. So that's what just-in-timeness means for them. And I always try to reserve some energy for some participation in support cases, in planning planned or unplanned customer calls, because it's really where your time is very needed and nobody probably except you can do it. So for team, that's three superpowers do the work for me as well, except that trust and independence, but on level of really getting things done, they get in the value context as well. And that is not just because I want them to. That helps me. Yeah, that helps me a lot, and that makes the product in details, of better quality, and of better value in the end of the day. Now, this last one. It's not a superpower. And again, sorry for that stupid name. It's kind of an artifact, the data shovel. I won't tell you at all about their big data trends and the importance of being data-driven, doing all the decisions and so on. That's really is important. However, for myself, I notice from time to time that I remember that on a big scale for my product, for my research, for my roadmap and so on, for resisting the petty tyranny of the stakeholders, but in daily life I forget that. And that might have bad consequences. If the team feels that you are just like, okay, that's clear, I have that in the back of my mind, that's my response and please go and do it. That sometimes will demotivate them. Someone was talking about motivation. I won't read that most word abuse slide of my presentation. Just want to say that whenever I can, I try to use that small moments of Q&A during the day, on the stand-ups, on their debugging, on looking into their feature in not ideal implementation, to give them that data-driven answers, even in small things. And one more important thing. We often just gut feel, and that's okay, because for me, the thing that is called intuition is just some really rational connections in your brain that shortcut it for you. You can't explain it, and sometimes you're wrong, sometimes you're right. But if you admit it in front of your team, you will get their help, support. I'm making the big experiment of that for all of us, and they are participating, they are playing with me. However, if I just try to pretend that that is data-based somehow, but it will look like subjective opinion, I will be isolated, and in the worst case, they will even confront me with something, with some questions that I won't be able to answer, and so on. So I try to just say, okay, now we're a gut feeling, let's experiment. Don't know what we will have as a result, but let's do it. So that's almost it, a bit not on time. Before we end, I'd like to ask you this one simple question. In one sentence, as a product, well, okay, as a product leader for your team, what's your role? How do you think?
Transparency.
What? Sorry, what?
A little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything. No, I'm not just talking about these things that I named somehow with that stupid names. Just, if in your own words, what's your main role? What should you do for the team? Responsible guy? Like project manager. Another responsible guy.
Project manager responsible for like the project, how it should work, about the process, and the product manager is responsible for success.
Well, everyone's responsible for success, or each one's. Okay, so not making you try to guess what I had in mind. Just to end with these words, for me, all these superpowers for the stakeholders, for the team, work for just one simple thing, sentence in 3 words, doing right things. And that's the essence of product management for me. Our teams, they know how to do things right. They know how to make it real. Yeah, that's what they excel at. When we are joining there, we can get that other perspective to do that right things, and they will do it in a right way. So for me, that's it. Let's rock together with our teams and with our stakeholders, and may the force be with us. Thank you.